Welcome back, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck. With me, of course, David Griscom. Hello, David.
Hey, brother.
And joining us once again, Deep State Kuba, Dr. Kuba 2 is the at. Kuba, welcome back to the program.
The pleasure is mine.
Folks, Left Reckoning patrons will be familiar with, and YouTube viewers will be familiar with Kuba on our program, also over at This Is Revolution. But he was on with us to discuss some other things, manliness, and of course Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson.
You can't talk about manliness without Tucker Carlson.
Exactly, and so Tucker Carlson, of course, did the biggest sort of thing in manliness this year is Tucker Carlson's Fox original documentary about how JFK wanted to exercise fat kids and the woke people wouldn't let him. But Tucker Carlson is now out. And there are many speculated reasons. To me, it looks like a lot of people projecting their preferred martyrdom onto Tucker, that it was his takes on Ukraine, Russia, or his populism somehow, or Glenn Beck saying that it was his Christianity coming through. And in fact, I was listening to Steven Crowder and Alex Jones the other day. You don't envy me. And Alex Jones was saying this: one, that Tucker has to be a little bit quiet because he has an NDA signed, but two, that the real thing, among all the others that are cause for Tucker's martyrdom, is he's growing embrace of Jesus Christ. And which I guess that's an interesting shift. I thought the anti-CIA whistleblower was going to be the move, but it seems like the polling is showing like maybe go into the born again Christian thing instead. So, but I'm just curious, you guys, Kuba, let's start with you. What is your reaction to Tucker leaving us?
So I stay away from Alex Jones and Steve Crowder because Rod Dreher and the American conservative theo-fascist crowd is more my jam. And before the firing, Tucker had absolutely won everybody over in that set with his speech at the Heritage Foundation, which basically elevated the political and cultural war to the level of theology and implied that every conservative, every real American needed to start praying hard because it would take that kind of divine favor to tip the scales away from the demonic forces. Presumably, we would be like some kind of low-level imps in this whole thing. I mean,
right?
I've got a pitchfork over there, so I'm prepared for my team.
Yeah, but, we're building the walls of pandemonium right now.
Exactly, brick by sinful brick, and the Rupert Murdoch, the story in Vanity Fair on the inner workings of the Murdoch empire, also emphasized that as more of this Christian fundamentalist, overtly religious, sectarian, and kind of end timesy thinking was getting introduced to the Fox audience, and that Tucker Carlson was getting elevated in that set, which included Rupert Murdoch's former short-lived fiancée, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think that it is worth noting that Rupert Murdoch is very prickly about challenges to his authority, perceived or real, and has never been comfortable with the religious right. He prefers good old-fashioned racists and people who hate poor people, anti-union, pro-corporate types. He got along famously with Tony Blair, after all. But the whole Christian end times, good versus evil, playing out in the streets of America thing made him uncomfortable, together with just the fact that Tucker has personalized the Fox brand a little too much. So good opportunity to cut him off at the knees and reassert his personal influence and control over the Fox News empire.
I think that last point especially is like really on, because comparing like Tucker to like a Bill O'Reilly. Well, obviously Bill O'Reilly was a big character, had a lot of big fans. Um, I don't know, like sometimes, like when you think of Bill O'Reilly, you still think of Fox. While like Tucker was sort of occupying his own lane that was probably distinct even from some of the other. I don't want to like overstate. Oh, Tucker was a maverick or anything like that, but like, you know, I think unique even compared to some of the other like mainstream Fox News hosts, especially over this past 2 years. That like, yeah, I think that like the worrying of a losing of control of the Fox News brand might have played a role there.
And if you think about the only counterpart I could uh, consider on the same level as Tucker Carlson at Fox, maybe be Sean Hannity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but
But he's
Sean
just
Han-
he's a good boy too. You know what I mean?
precisely. Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, um, essentially the after they got rid of Shepard Smith, whose journalism I respected, even if obviously politically we're very, very far apart. But that guy had some integrity and some sense of what his professional duty was. He didn't like to lie to his viewers, which actually, more and more became the job of a Fox News personality. And um, since then, they've all been good boys, right? There hasn't been that kind of threat of insubordination or a pull to ideologically to get away from Rupert Murdoch style conservatism. Tucker Carlson, though, pretty big for his britches. And we'll see to the extent that he's expendable. I don't think that this will hurt Fox. After all, they have the structure. Tucker just has his face. But I'm anxious about the possibility that Tucker joins up with Ben Shapiro or other more youthful elements of the reactionary right, and that gives him a platform to continue, both his personal ascent and is pushing all of these narratives from ball tanning to the Great Replacement to raw egg theory and invading Canada. That's right. There was also the invading Canada
Oh, I
documentary.
missed that one. I think that's
It's
true
gotten
too.
shelved apparently.
It
It was
got
supposed to
shelved.
come out this week, but
Oh, that's the real
tragically,
conspiracy then.
exactly, Trudeau called in a favor.
Yeah.
This is called a Canadian assassination incident.
I mean, I think there's also no doubt too with Tucker that like he even before this too has been trying to pivot to a younger audience, like from when like his podcast appearances and things like
Those
that, trying to be
bros.
really broy. He's like very big on Zen, which if you're not like a bro, you might not know, but it's like that's what we're all chewing now instead of tobacco. Like he's talking about these things that like are very much like frat bro, 23, 24-year-old angry young white guy. Yeah, and like yeah, maybe at a certain point realizing that the Fox News audience might be, I don't know,
Turns out they're
perennially
dying.
in decline. It's a nice way to put it.
Do we take the religious stuff seriously with Tucker? Because like to me, it reeks of all those like Nixon guys. They're like, oh yeah, actually, I'm sorry about that. I believe in God now, though. Like I don't think Tucker actually believes in God. Maybe that's a very nebulous and difficult thing to adjudicate. But I'm just talking about my vibe here.
I so on. There's definitely a spectrum. Religiosity is a spectrum, and even fake religiosity within that.
Mm-hmm.
So on one extreme, you've got Donald Trump, who can't even be bothered to,
Yeah.
like, he calls it Corinthians 2, right?
Yeah.
And those very transparent ploys, um, right, like it gives the game away, and they often backfire. One thing that I'll say about Tucker Carlson, especially given, thanks to Rod Dreher, I watched the whole Heritage speech.
Mm.
He, if he's faking it, he knows how to do it well. He made jokes about how he's an Episcopalian, which is barely a Christian, and he channeled sincerity around, I don't pray enough for America, this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And people like Roger ate it up. They love it. I think that I don't see him behaving like much of a Christian, right? Every once in a while, right? I'm an atheist myself, but I've known some Christians, including politically conservative ones, that really do try to walk the walk, and it's an impressive thing to see. Sometimes it's humbling how much they do, um, and you see none of that with Tucker Carlson, right? Like there's just rank opportunism, including towards his own audience, peddling things like the um, testicular sunning, just treating them like a cash grab and not having the integrity to even make his case on political issues honestly and with accurate facts. So when a liar is talking about how much they love God, then you got to wonder if that isn't part of the lie too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe and I'm not definite about this, but maybe I'm too poisoned by Family of Secrets, the book on the Bush family that goes into George W. Bush's, studied, I would say, come to evangelical ideology. It just, I wouldn't.
And he,
And Tucker being a private school guy, like I just, I'm very skeptical.
yeah, exactly. The rich boy thing too. He seems like more the Bohemian Grove demographic than
Yes, exactly.
and the and typically what happens when you have elites who find Jesus, especially ones in that kind of moneyed international um, pseudo intellectual crowd, people like Tony Blair, they tend to convert to Catholicism, right? Because you have a strong conservative uh, segment of the Catholic Church. They speak Latin. There's a lot of tradition, and there's intellectual firepower there. Thomas Aquinas set the stage for every book that was written after that in the West, and so you can tap into that tradition instead of like snake handling and speaking in tongues, which is not to disrespect that. It's
Very
just a different
powerful
thing.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different thing, right? A different kind of power.
And a fun Sunday, I will say. Anyway.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Carlson is still in the most liberal of the mainline Protestant churches. So again,
Yeah. And the one other aspect of this Tucker out thing is the leaked text message that came out earlier this week, where
Yeah.
it was the day after January 6th, and he's waxing, reflective about how he was watching some MAGA guys beat up an Antifa guy, and he said they jumped him in a way that made him think that's not how white men fight. And that brings me back to like my private little rich boy thing, like that it's white supremacy, but it's not like a sort of like, I don't know, the
it's
guys in
genteel.
Michigan, exactly. It's like Rudyard Kipling. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm in a Michigan like
Mhm.
forest doing tactical maneuvers.
And
Yeah.
I think something that's like very clear within like a elite American racist thought, which is that you can sort of like be pushed out of being white by acting in a certain way, right? Like the implication there too is like, one, that black people or people of color like act this way, and two, that like, oh, these are the low ones, like these are the low whites that don't
Yeah.
represent our grand empire or ambitions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, these are the guys who gate kept the Irish and the Italians out of the white race for until it became absolutely essential to broaden the club. And the not much more, when you say like rich white guy thing, even more important than the white part is the rich part, right? The poverty. There's an expression in Brazil that because they have dozens of different racial categories because of the high level of mixing and the different heritage that Brazilians have. They say money whitens.
Mhm.
You could be like full on black, but we'll call you mixed because you're rich. And in the U.S., poverty blackens. When you look at police killings of whites, they're the largest single group, incidentally, that are killed by police officers. Of course, the black victims are way disproportionate to their size of the population. It's just a reflection of the number of white people in America. But you dig into those figures, it's almost all demographically poor and working class.
Yep.
Well, I know we're going to jump over in just a second, but like, I have to put you on the spot of trying to make some predictions. I mean, do you think that Tucker is going to be able to build out something for himself without having that, Fox News empire? I know you were saying potentially him joining up with these like new media people on the right, but I wonder, I mean, like again, like Ben Shapiro's podcast is like one of the top downloaded ones on Apple, if I'm correct. Like, so they have reach outside of traditional like cable news media. But do you think that Tucker's still going to be able to carve out as significantly large of an audience, or do you think he'll still be here, but it will be more marginal?
Well, this is a bit of an interesting time since Tucker's firing came not that far after Rod Dreher was pushed out of the American Conservative, which suggests to me that there might be an awareness in the conservative movement that the religiously inflected apocalyptic culture war stuff, it didn't do so well in the midterm elections. DeSantis, Mickey Mouse Slayer is not really, he's not firing. So on all cylinders. So I think that this might be a tendency that they want to push under the rug. The problem is that there's also the beginnings of a institutionalized NatCon movement. They're internationalized as well. Like Rod Dreher is now in Budapest, enjoying the hospitality of Viktor Orban, and there's access to even state levels of support from countries, Italy, Hungary, certainly elsewhere, that might find him a useful proxy, especially right, like the Russia stuff. I think he's actually too racist to go for one of the most promising partnerships, which would be with anti-China Asians. Lots of money, lots of interest in pivoting the U.S. away from Russia. China is Tucker's bugbear, but I don't think he knows how to talk to foreigners. But the European right might find him a good investment.
Yeah, but he's gonna have to clean up his whole fly fishing log cabin thing that he's been. I don't know. Maybe it'll appeal to them having a real American conservative. But
yeah, and that whole like virility thing is big over there too. He just, then again, he's been shitting on NATO for so long that
that's true too. Yeah,
he may have alienated everybody, but I expect that he will find himself his Harlan Crow. He will find himself his backer that will give him a second wind. I wouldn't count him out.
Before we wrap, can you just remind folks, Rod Dreher, very weird, strange guy, and that's not just me saying that. That's the billionaire who was bankrolling him, who pulled the funding. If you listen to Chapo Trap House, like Rod is a stable there, but do you remember any of the details about why they decided, like, okay, enough of this, Rod?
The sex stuff.
Yeah.
He has I discovered Rod Dreher independently of Chapo Trap House. And for me, I have a fascination with him because there's some intellectual sophistication. There's when he critiques established power structures, things like that, or he goes after the influence of corporations on American society, he can sound reasonable. But then immediately it's drag queen story time and full blown church lady psycho.
Mhm.
And he'll also insist on going into detail about it. Like, he has a paragraph where he talks about his discovery of circumcision because there was a classmate of his that he emphasizes was black in grade school that had a uncut root wiener, I believe is how he put it.
I just found the tweet. The demise of Rod Dreher's TSC blog, the American Conservative blog, began with him recounting the first time he saw an uncircumcised penis upon reading the, quote, primitive root wiener post. The donor funding Rod's entire salary decided the blog had simply gotten too weird.
It's funny because for me, it's when he started getting nostalgic about Franco and talking about how all the leftists in Spain needed to get Pinochet. But I guess some people are uncomfortable with the beauty of the naked human form.
Oh, man. Well, folks, we got more with Kuba at patreon.com/leftreckoning, where we'll be talking about Ukraine and Russia. But Kuba, where can people find you over at This Is Revolution at Dr. Kuba 2? Where else?
So I'm on This Is Revolution Wednesdays, or White Guy Wednesdays, with myself, Gene Bajalan, and Varn. Although we really should have asked Tucker if we still qualify, because I'm an immigrant. Varn is part Jewish, and Gene's a Kurd. So I don't know if we'd be welcome at his country club, but
you probably wouldn't.
But that's that in the Thursday show where we cover news topics on Sublation Media with Doug Lane on a kind of occasional basis. But we've got a piece on free speech coming out, and I'm on Varn's Varn Vlog. He's on Twitter at Ski Poet, and we have a piece on class structures. Very, very, very nerd stuff, but for those who are into that, there's we even dabble in revisionists and the Italian elitist school.
Wow.
Good stuff.
There you go. Well, folks, follow Kuba, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Here come the Patreon only episode.